You can either transfer the funds by Friday, or you can say goodbye to seeing Leo ever again. That was the ultimatum my daughter-in-law gave me over Sunday roast. She thought she was holding all the aces. She didn't know I had already spoken to my estate lawyer that morning.
The Quiet Case Files.
I should have known something was wrong the moment my daughter-in-law, Sarah, offered to pour the wine. Usually, she treats my home like a hotel where the service is slow and the decor is outdated. But that Sunday, the air was thick with a strange, sugary sweetness that made my stomach turn. My son, Mark, was no better. He kept complimenting the roast beef, telling me how much he missed my cooking, asking about my garden. It was a performance. I just did not know the ticket price yet. We moved into the living room for coffee. I sat in my wingback chair, the one my late husband bought just before he passed. Mark sat on the edge of the sofa, elbows on his knees, vibrating with nervous energy. Sarah sat close to him, her hand resting on his back, like she was coaching a boxer before a fight. "Mom," Mark started, his voice cracking slightly. "We need to talk to you about something exciting. We finally found it. The forever home. It has the big yard for Leo, the school district, everything." I smiled, genuinely happy for a split second. "That is wonderful, Mark. I am proud of you." Then came the silence, the heavy, expensive silence. Mark looked at Sarah. Sarah gave a barely perceptible nod. "The thing is," Mark said, his eyes fixing on the rug, "the market is brutal right now. We can make the monthly payments, no problem. But to secure the loan, we need a substantial down payment. Immediate cash." I took a slow sip of my coffee. "How substantial?" I asked. $200,000, he said. $200,000. I repeated the words slowly, letting them hang in the air between us. "Mark, you know exactly what is in my accounts. That is nearly everything your father and I saved for my old age. That is my safety net." Mark waved a hand dismissively, as if I were worrying about the weather rather than my survival. "Mom, come on. You are healthy. You own this house free and clear. You do not need that kind of cash sitting in a bank earning dust. It is a waste." "I need it for security," I said, keeping my voice steady, though my heart was hammering against my ribs. "What if I need surgery? What about long-term care? Assisted living facilities cost thousands of dollars a month. I cannot predict the future, and I will not be a burden on anyone." "You would not be a burden." Mark insisted, though his eyes did not meet mine. "That is the whole point. You help us get this house now, and we take care of you later. When you get too old to live here, you move in with us. We are family. We look out for each other." For a moment, I wavered. I looked at my son and saw the desperation in his face. I remembered him as a little boy, scraping his knee and running to me for comfort. I started doing mental math, wondering if I could perhaps offer $20,000 as a gift, just to help them get started. I was about to reach for my checkbook to offer a compromise, but then Sarah set her wine glass down on the coffee table with a sharp clink. She did not look desperate. She looked annoyed, and when she opened her mouth, she changed the entire trajectory of our lives. "Linda, let us be real here," Sarah said. Her tone had shifted completely. Gone was the daughter-in-law who brought wine. Here was the woman who looked at my assets like a vulture circling a carcass. "You are 70 years old. You spend your days gardening and watching television. You simply do not need that much money sitting there." I felt a cold flush rise up my neck. "Excuse me." Mark is trying to be polite, but we are on a deadline, Sarah snapped. That money is dead capital. It is doing nothing for anyone. Meanwhile, your grandson is growing up in a cramped apartment. Honestly, it is selfish. You are hoarding wealth while your own flesh and blood struggles to get a foothold in life. I turned my head slowly to look at my son. I waited for him to speak up. I waited for him to tell his wife that she could not speak to his mother that way. I waited for the boy I raised to show some backbone. But Mark just stared at the pattern on the rug, refusing to meet my eyes. He was letting her do the dirty work. He was complicit in this ambush. My retirement fund is not hoarding, I said, my voice low and steady. It is the result of 40 years of labor. It is my insurance policy against becoming a burden. And the answer is no. I am not emptying my accounts for a house I will not own. Sarah did not scream. Instead, her face went icy calm. She leaned back, crossed her arms, and delivered the line she had clearly rehearsed. Fine, she said. If you do not help family, then you are not family. And since you are not family, you have no business seeing our son. The room went dead silent. I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. What did you say? I whispered. You heard me, Sarah said, picking at a loose thread on her sweater. If you cannot support Leo's future, you do not get to be part of his present. Do not expect to see him for Christmas. Do not expect to see him for his birthday. If the money stays in the bank, the door stays closed. I looked at Mark one last time. Mark, are you really going to let her use your son as a bargaining chip? Mark finally looked up. His eyes were hard. We're doing what is best for Leo, Mom. You have a choice. I stood up. My knees popped, but I stood tall. Get out. Mom, be reasonable. Mark started. Get out of my house, I said, pointing a shaking finger at the door. Both of you, now. They left in a huff, slamming the front door so hard the windows rattled. I locked the deadbolt behind them and leaned against the wood, breathing hard. My hands were trembling, but not from fear. I was shaking from the sudden, crystal clear realization of who my son had become. They drove away convinced that they had won. They thought they had broken me. They thought I would call them back within the hour, weeping and begging to pay the ransom. They were wrong. I did not reach for the phone to apologize. I reached for my laptop. I poured a cup of cold tea down the sink and sat at my desk. The glow of the screen, the only light in the room. Mark had made a critical error. Years ago, when he was in graduate school, he had added me to a joint checking account for emergencies. He had likely forgotten it existed. I had not. I logged in, expecting to see evidence of the struggle they claimed to be enduring. I expected to see late fees, overdraft notices, perhaps a loan payment for a modest car. I was ready to feel guilty. I was ready to find proof that my son was drowning. Instead, I found a roadmap of indulgence. There were charges for high-end steakhouses on Tuesday nights, $300 at a wine bar, designer clothing boutiques. But the real shock came when I cross-referenced the dates with Sarah's social media. She had blocked me on Facebook, but her Instagram profile was wide open. 2 months ago, Mark had told me he was going to a tedious business conference in Cleveland. He said he would be working 16-hour days. I looked at the screen. There was Mark holding a margarita, standing on a white sand beach in Cabo San Lucas. The caption read, "Living our best life." They were staying at a resort that cost $800 a night. I kept scrolling. I saw a photo of a new luxury SUV in their driveway, posted 3 weeks ago with the hashtag #NewWheels. It was a lease, costing nearly $900 a month. The picture became clear. They were not poor. They were not struggling. They were living a champagne lifestyle on a beer budget, and they were drowning in consumer debt of their own making. They did not need my retirement money for a dream house. They needed it to subsidize their vanity. They wanted me to get my future so they could maintain the illusion of success. And the grandkid card, it wasn't an act of desperation from parents trying to give their child a better life. It was a cold, calculated extortion attempt. They were using an innocent 4-year-old boy as leverage to fund their vacations and luxury cars. I closed the laptop. The sadness that had been weighing on my chest evaporated. In its place, a cold, hard resolve settled in. I realized then that my son was not a victim of a demanding wife. He was a co-conspirator. He was willing to strip his mother of her security to keep up appearances. I needed to make a call, but not to Mark. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I had not used in 5 years. "Mr. Henderson," I said when the secretary picked up. "This is Linda. I need an emergency appointment to update my estate plan. Tomorrow morning." Mr. Henderson had been our family attorney for over 30 years. He had handled the purchase of our first home and the paperwork when my husband passed away. When I sat down in his leather chair the next morning, the office smelled of old paper and lemon polish. He offered me a peppermint candy, just like he always did, but he could tell by the set of my jaw that this was not a social visit. "I need to make significant changes, James," I told him. "Immediate changes." I instructed him to revoke my current will entirely. Under the old document, Mark was the sole beneficiary, set to inherit the house, the savings, the investments, everything. It was a standard arrangement, built on the assumption that a son would care for his mother. That assumption had been proven false. "Mark gets nothing," I said, my voice steady, though my hands were clasped tight in my lap. "Zero. I want him disinherited explicitly so he cannot contest it later." Mr. Henderson paused, his pen hovering over his yellow legal pad. He looked over his spectacles with deep concern. "That is a drastic step, Linda. Are you certain?" "I have never been more certain," I replied. "However, I do not want to punish my grandson for the sins of his parents. I want to establish a generation-skipping trust for Leo." We spent the next hour hammering out the ironclad details. The bulk of my estate would go into a locked trust fund. Leo could not access the principal until he turned 30 years old. And the most important clause was the trustee restriction. Neither Mark nor Sarah could access, manage, or borrow against the funds. They were to be. Once the paperwork was drafted, I took the next step. I went to the bank. I sat with the branch manager and requested a withdrawal. It was a substantial amount of liquid cash, enough to make the teller raise an eyebrow, but I assured her it was for immediate personal use. When I walked out of the bank, the winter air felt crisp and clean. I drove home and did something I had not done in years. I booked a trip, not a weekend getaway, but a real journey. Then I set the trap. I picked up my phone and typed a text message to Mark. I kept it brief and vague, knowing their greed would fill in the blanks. "Mark, I have been thinking about what you said. Come over for Christmas Eve dinner. I have an envelope for you regarding the house funds." The reply came in less than 30 seconds. "Thanks, Mom. We knew you would do the right thing. See you then. Love you." I stared at the words, "love you," on the screen. They looked hollow, like a neon sign on a condemned building. They arrived on Christmas Eve, smiling like sharks, expecting a check that would solve all their problems. I welcomed them in, took their coats, and handed them a single thick envelope. The atmosphere in the living room was electric. Mark and Sarah were practically vibrating with anticipation. They had brought gifts this time, expensive-looking ones, likely charged to a credit card they expected to pay off with my money. Sarah was overly affectionate, complimenting my dress, asking if I needed help in the kitchen. It was sickening. We sat down near the tree. Leo was playing happily with a toy truck I had bought him, oblivious to the tension above his head. "Open it," I said, nodding toward the envelope in Mark's hands. Mark grinned at Sarah. "Mom, you really didn't have to." He tore the seal, his fingers clumsy with eagerness. He pulled out the stack of papers. I watched his face. The smile froze, then slowly dissolved into confusion, and finally pure shock. He wasn't looking at a check. He was looking at a legal document titled Last Will and Testament. "What is this?" Mark asked, his voice trembling. "Keep reading," I said calmly. He flipped the page, then another. He saw the clause disinheriting him. He saw the trust fund set up for Leo, locked tight until the year 2050. And then he found the receipt at the back of the stack. $80,000, he whispered. "Mom, what is this?" "That," I said, taking a sip of my eggnog, "is a receipt for a 6-month world cruise. I leave in January. Non-refund." Sarah snatched the papers from Mark's hands. Her eyes scanned the documents frantically. You spent it? You spent the down payment." "It was never a down payment, Sarah," I said. "It was my retirement. And since you made it clear that you have no intention of taking care of me, I decided to spend my money ensuring I enjoy the time I have left." "But the house!" Sarah shrieked. Her composure was gone. "We put a deposit down. We need that money." "That sounds like a personal problem," I replied. "You told me that if I didn't pay up, I wouldn't see my grandson. Well, now you don't have to worry about me being a burden. I won't be here. I'll be in Greece. Or maybe Italy." Mark looked pale, like he was going to be sick. "Mom, you can't do this. We're family. Family doesn't hold grandchildren hostage for cash," I said, my voice hardening. "Family doesn't tell their mother she is useless because she won't fund a lifestyle they can't afford. You played a game, Mark. You lost." "I was just emotional," Sarah stammered, trying to backtrack, her face flushing red. "I didn't mean it. We would never actually keep Leo from you." I stood up and pointed to the door. "Get out." The silence in the room was absolute. Even Leo stopped playing with his truck, sensing the shift in the air. Mark looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in years. He didn't see a checkbook. He saw his mother, and he saw the bridge he had just burned to the ground. "Mom." He started reaching out a hand. "Go," I said. "Take your gifts, take your wife, and go figure out how to pay for your own life." They left in silence this time. No slamming doors, just the quiet shuffle of defeat. I watched through the window as they got into their leased luxury SUV. They sat there for a long time before driving away. That was 6 months ago. I am recording this from the balcony of a ship currently docked off the coast of Santorini. The water is a blue I have never seen before. The sun is warm on my face. I have met wonderful people, eaten food I cannot pronounce, and seen sunsets that make you believe in God. My lawyer, Mr. Henderson, handles my mail. Apparently, Mark and Sarah had to back out of the house purchase. They lost their deposit. They had to downsize to a smaller apartment to manage their debt. They have tried to call me, email me, send letters. I have not read a single one. I do miss Leo. That is the only hard part. I have a photo of him taped to the mirror in my cabin. but I know that the trust fund is waiting for him. When he is 30, he will have a start in life that his parents cannot touch, squander, or leverage. He will know that his grandmother loved him enough to protect his future, even if it meant cutting off his parents. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that Sunday roast. I think about how close I came to writing that check. I think about how miserable I would be right now, sitting in a cold house, waiting for a visit that would never come, knowing I had been used. Instead, I am free. They lost a $600,000 inheritance and a free babysitter because they got greedy for $200,000. They gambled on my love being a weakness. They forgot that love is also about respect. I finish my wine and look out at the horizon. The captain says we set sail for Istanbul tonight. I can't wait. I miss my grandson, but I will not pay a ransom to terrorists, even if they share my DNA. I am taking care of myself, just like I promised.
If you enjoy radio-style stories like this, please consider staying with us. This is QCF.